it's juicy. Now I'm starting to believe. I'm starting to believe it now. I'm starting to see it.
It's starting to sound like a really good
It
match.
is. It's starting to sound doable. What's going on, man?
What's going on?
What is going on?
Well, you know what's going on.
East vs West is coming up.
Yeah. And there's some matches we haven't discussed yet.
There's a match out there that in particular is if you're an American, it's like the People's Champ match.
If you're anywhere, it's the People's Champ match.
Well, what if you're in Bulgaria? It's not the People's Champ match, or is
their People's Champ?
Is Sasho the People's Champ?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
I don't know.
Battle of the People's Champs. There we go. Despite Bulgaria not quite being as big as the USA in population, hey, it doesn't matter. He's still the People's Champ. Sasho Andreev, Paul Linn is what we're talking about. Obviously, good match, hey, good match.
Mega. Paul's been on the up and up recently, and it's great to see him. Is this his highest caliber yet?
I think. Well, he faced Rustam Babayev, which we'll talk about in depth.
Yeah,
which you could say Rustam is higher than Sasho.
You can say that,
but there's context there. So Sasho,
Sasho. Now of course Rustam injured himself, so hopefully Sasho stays healthy against Paul's raw power. Exciting, isn't it? And see what Sasho's able to do with Paul's awkward style on the table.
The White Orc, as he's commonly known. It's interesting because Paul has become what I would describe. He's been the first person in a while out of the USA that it's been very obvious that he's gone from over the last 7 years, high-end amateur through the pro ranks. You now call him elite. You have to call him elite now.
Yeah, you can't not call him elite. Yeah. Absolutely. And he's done it, and he's got the entire world behind him, honestly, not just America.
Screw you, Paul Linn.
Yeah, I know.
Screw you, Paul Linn. You're too nice, damn it.
Yeah, nicest man in arm wrestling.
He is really nice. But he's done an amazing job. I have a lot of time for Paul because he's very diligent. I don't think he misses a beat at all. He's very hardworking, very inspirational to other arm wrestlers. He's a coach for high school football. I think it is American high school football. I think he's a strength coach there. The dude really is the People's Champ. He's like Captain America. It's like, oh my goodness. I think Paul's a stud, but he is up against an established stud with a long history of world championships.
Yeah, and that's something we're seeing with a lot of the Americans is they're multiple time world champions. They've been at it for a long time. Sasho has been elite for as long as Paul's been arm wrestling.
Yeah,
or longer.
Yeah.
So
Sasho won.
Yeah.
I think it might have even been the Worlds that I attended in 2015. It could be another one, but I think it was that one where Sasho won the juniors and the seniors. Yeah, he was there. Yeah. He was there because Grant Tolentino pulled Sasho. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it was juniors and seniors, and he did that multiple times, and then obviously becomes a senior, wins the WAF world title. I don't know how many times he's done it, but I think Sasho's he's pushing for one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, absolutely, and already is kind of pound for pound one of the all-time greats. If you're talking about pound for pound arm wrestlers right now on the circuit, you've got to talk about Sasho. You've got to talk about people like Daniel Prokopchik, and like they're probably two of your main names if you're talking pound for pound best.
Because what are we talking about here when we're looking at the weights? It's what Sasho. I think Sasho bulks up to a 90, 92, 93, doesn't he? Like I've seen him pull 95 kilo super matches. And he didn't even make the 95. Like when he beat Irakli, for instance. Which, that's a good point, isn't it? He beat Irakli, damn it. Paul, you're in trouble. Oh my goodness, hope you're strong, man. So let's just, I just forgot about that match. And then it just came back. I was just thinking about it. Oh man. But okay, so Sasho did beat Irakli at 95 kilos.
Yep.
And I think he beat him 5-1 from memory.
Yep.
Paul and Irakli have a fairly similar shape in the way that they load, the way that they attack. I think that Paul has more inside game than Irakli does, but the way they load their outside threat, very similar. How do you draw? What parallels do you draw from that, man? That's crazy. It scares me for Paul.
Well, I think what you said about that inside's pretty key for Paul. When we looked at that match with Irakli at that point in time, he didn't have the inside integrity to match his immense back pressure threat, and so he didn't have options once the match stopped. Paul hopefully has options once the match stops, as long as he doesn't come completely down onto the wrist of Sasho, just keeping more of he has more of a high hook option if he needs it. So there's maybe a little bit less concern, but.
One thing I've seen in Paul, if I remember back to his matches against like David Samushia, where I think he won that one 3-2. That was his first West debut. You mentioned it, a high hook. He has it's almost an all or nothing move where he goes offensively. It's kind of an open arm pronated hook. He doesn't stay tight in his high hook. He goes for it. He puts the foot down and says, "I'm going to pin you now," and I suspect the strongest arc in his arm is around a little past 90 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah, and he kind of hooks with this open arm drive. If that doesn't get through on Sasho, it's over. Because Sasho, the king of staying around, he will stay around in that position all day. Oh man, Paul.
It's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. The list of people that Sasho has been able to handle and win over is very extensive. And I mean, recently, of course, you've had, well, relatively recently, Irakli, it's only a few years ago, and you had Rob Vigent Jr. and and he dealt with Rob very, very comfortably.
Very calmly.
He top rolled him.
Yeah.
He top rolled him.
He looked a little troubled by Rob outside of straps round one, but then it was all over. As soon as they got to a strap, it was not even close, and then the fatigue set in, and he was doing anything he wanted by the end of it. Paul is here's one factor about this match. Paul is the best weight cutter I have ever come across, and Sasho building up to this weight. I don't know what their catch weight is. I suspect.
It'll be 95, won't it?
Yeah, it's going to be 95. It's going to be 95. So Sasho is going to be building up to 95, probably like he's always done, probably falling a couple kilos short. Paul will cut down to 95 the day before, and he will be 106, 107 kilos come ready to go. What does that do to the match? All
of a sudden you have a 10 to 15 kilogram weight advantage for Paul,
and he holds it so damn well.
He looks phenomenal.
And when you talk to him, I was the last East vs West I was at. I witnessed this and spoke directly to Paul. Like, his energy levels are amazing. He doesn't feel flat. He's like, no, I feel amazing. I feel really good. I'm like, how do you do this, David Paul? Teach me, damn it! I can't cut 3 kilos out feeling terrible, let alone what he does. But as you say, we've got a match now that is a 93 kilo man against a 106, 107 kilo man potentially. That has to be worth something come ready go, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely does. And we're talking about the fact that Paul has a style which, if he chooses to, is an all or nothing hit. He absolutely has options outside of that. But if he goes for an all or nothing hit, that extra weight behind him, especially off center, is very, very helpful for following through with that momentum if he gets it. So that weight might be the difference.
Do you think Paul is going to take Sasho's wrist?
Out of straps, I'd hope so. Otherwise, he doesn't have too much of it.
I don't think Paul's going to hold on outside of straps. I think Paul's going to be. I think Sasho is going to have that much center table threat that it's going to scare Paul, and all Paul's going to do is want to not look outgunned. This is round one, and subsequently he's just going to post and pronate, and he's not going to hold on. He's going to just be like, I need to know that I can crack this man's hand outside of straps, like way before being brave enough to go, all right, I'm going to actually hold on outside of straps. If Paul held on out of straps, in round one, oh man, he's coming in hot. If that happens.
That's a confident Paul.
Yeah. So hold on to Sasho.
Look, after his last performance, I wouldn't be shocked to see Paul try.
Let's talk about that last performance for a moment. Rustam Babayev, some consider him as high as number 2 in the GOAT list for results. I think only Engin Terzi has more WAF titles than Rustam or something like that. It's something
Like
crazy.
that. Yeah.
Rustam's titles are phenomenal, and he has punched up from his weight category and taken down many, many monsters. How did you see that match? Because Paul won it in disappointing fashion, being that Rustam got injured, and Rustam had taken the first 2 rounds from memory.
We might have to watch that match again. Oh,
Let's bring it up. Let's
That's
bring it up.
disappointing. Let's bring it up.
Okay, let's bring this sucker up. All right, round number 1 in the straps. Paul Linn, you can see he's doing his high knuckles, heavy loaded pronation setup, which is the classic Paul Linn. Rustam, knuckles up, but you can see he's intending on hooking.
Not that needs to be said for Rustam.
Yeah, Rustam the king.
I've never seen him intend to top roll. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen him top roll.
I feel like I have, but
Probably.
yeah, but still,
it's not.
We know where his ace is.
Yeah.
So, Paul in round 1, what happens? Initiation, the pronation gets turned down by Rustam. Elbow fouls, bobbling around, restarts going on. But you can see there that classic shape from Paul in on off the go was contained at Rustam. And I remember, for me at this stage, I remember thinking, okay, it looks like Rustam. He turned that in effectively.
You see, Paul still had rubber on the road. Paul wasn't out of it.
Well, that's the thing. Paul has that backup hook, doesn't he? So as soon as you limit his pronation, he just brings his shoulder forward and says, "Okay, let's fight." Oh, good stuff from Rustam. He actually forced it from center, didn't he? Paul didn't get the offense in that round 1, despite his first start, which was a foul. I wonder if that was a change of decision from Paul or from Rustam that forced that. Man.
Well, we saw there in the third start of that round, Paul evidently felt forced to go straight back. We talked about that center threat and posting response from Paul earlier potential against Sasho, and we see that there against Rustam.
Paul didn't go sideways because of, I guess, respect of the hand of Rustam. He tried to defensively top roll, but let's look through now round 2. See if there's any different. Buckle side for Paul. Rustam, great height, quite dominant, gets control of the pronator, goes sideways and opens Paul up.
And again, Paul went for that defensive top roll.
Yep.
Whereas in the offense, round 1 on that first go actually looked very secure from Paul, and we see him coming with his shoulder forward this time, prepared to go inside,
round
slamming
3,
the hook.
He says, let's just go. I can't take your hand. I'm coming forward at you. He goes forward, gets a stop, a genuine stop, and a pec tear from Rustam. Now, let's have a look at that again. I want to look at that one more time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow this down. All we need to know is, was this genuine stop? And it looks like a genuine stop, doesn't it?
Absolutely looks like a genuine stop here. It's a stop lower down than he got in round 1.
So, as you said, it's Paul with his shoulder forward. He's committing. He attempts to basically high hook. He drops in. Rustam surge, hits the wall. Paul surges back, and the center looks balanced.
Yep.
And then the pec goes. So we don't know who was going to win that round. It looked like a balanced match.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
Looked, Paul was in the match again. He had rubber on the road. And his mistake potentially was completely dropping his pronation threat. You could see his shoulder forward. He no longer had as much loaded pronated back pressure in the setup. He was and committed with his frame, got taken, had to drag it back from the defensive side. Whereas in round 1, we saw him set up for the top roll, but launch with the side pressure threat and land in a very good position inside. But
does this mean that he should be hooking Sasho from the go?
Well, we saw he wasn't taking Rustam's wrist, but he was matching him inside.
Yeah. But isn't that a scary prospect for a man to say, I know how to beat these amazingly strong inside pullers, I'm going to hook them. But that is it's true. Like the truth is there. We've seen it.
He's got the longer lever.
Yeah, and when you are the longer lever hooker, you get the high ground, and subsequently you get greater access to rotation, and you have less pressure to pin.
An amazing example of this, and I'm sure everyone's mind has gone there, is Devon. Looking through Devon's career as a hooker, even against those extremely powerful hook opponents, once he was able to control a certain amount of rotation, the match was over. And it's similar for Paul. Is Paul needs to be able to establish his rotation and control Sasho's rotation, or at least limit it. And then the longer the match goes, does it go in Paul's favour, or is Sasho's endurance just too much?
Yeah. Well, now I'm starting to believe. I'm starting to believe it now. I'm starting to see it.
It's starting to sound like a really good
It
match.
is. It's starting to sound It's starting to sound doable. Now, I think we just had a look at Paul's match. I think we have a look at Sasho's match against Irakli.
Yeah.
Because I want to see how he contained one of the best back pressure and pronators off center. That was a special match. So let's have a look at that one now.
Man, that's a
Round number
young
one.
looking Irakli.
Yeah, he doesn't look as big as he does nowadays, but you can see Sasho, the size of him. He's one of the shortest elite arm wrestlers in the game. I think actually the shortest elite arm wrestler in the game.
All weight categories.
He's standing on a box there too.
Yeah.
So round one, there's the classic Irakli pronation, gets above the wrist line and it has sufficient side pressure to get the pin. Sasho at this stage down to 1-0. Irakli believing that he's got this match, but round two comes along and you'll see that Sasho. He can see his integrity. Look at the way the strap is positioned, very low on his wrist. Gets so much of that index finger through the knuckle, through the strap. Oh, and he actually cups over and gets that side pressure engaged. Now the arc for Irakli to get over his wrist is very, very difficult. It's a long road, and you can see as he goes sideways, Irakli's attempts, he falls into the arm of Sasho, and you can see right now it's not going to go well for Irakli. He's defending well and is holding things off, but Sasho's realm right now, he can lay on this for as long as he needs to, and eventually his opponent will go down. This was probably a mistake by Irakli to fight for this long in this round.
Absolutely, from that position. If you're a tall arm wrestler, you really want more established pronation if you're going to fight from that position. Yeah. So Sasho, round two, was absolutely able to come around and contain Irakli's pronation.
And round three, now that's one. It starts to fall away, doesn't it? And this is where we start to see that Sasho's ability to maintain a certain degree of pressure is very, very impressive. His endurance is outstanding. Round three, you can see that the hand and wrist of Irakli is doing its best, but his arm is very open. Once again, Sasho just starts hammering away with these side pressure things. And that's one of the things that makes him very unique is he has an ability to just keep repeatedly attacking on that side pressure lane. And even though Irakli appears to have quite a good stop there, the amount of bleeding going on in Irakli's arm, as you can see, it's opening wider and wider as he desperately looks for some method of taking the wrist of Sasho. Sasho just very patiently chips away. And I think it's his passive pressure, isn't it, Ethan? That just sits on you constantly.
And he almost seems to be getting tighter throughout the match as well. What you see here is it's difficult for Sasho to pin Irakli, but Irakli can't get it back to center. It is staying permanently on Sasho's A side of the table once that pronation was collapsed, because there was no inside threat, no elbow threat from Irakli. It was all on his bicep, unless he could get completely above the wrist line.
So Paul, even though he has similarities in the way he sets up and the load pressure to Irakli, Paul is willing to say, "Oh, you've limited me. I'm now coming forward." So it's a different match.
He may have to.
Yeah, well,
looking at
round one, according to us,
round one out of straps, Paul. Do it.
Oh, out of straps. Do you think it's not even really possible out of a strap, is it?
It's really not. And it's been a very long time since we've seen anybody successfully hold on to Sasho. His short arm, high knuckles, really good back pressure. You're not contending.
And even if you do compromise his wrist, his side pressure is so overwhelming that he's just going to flop slip, and you can't stop it, can you?
Yeah.
So this is a strap match with absolute certainty. It's funny how much this conversation, 20 minutes of talking, has led me to believe that there is a possibility. When I first started, I was genuinely thinking, oh, man, Paul. When I remembered that Sasho beat Irakli 5-1, I'm like, oh, no, Paul. But now I genuinely believe.
There's hope.
How do you see this match, man?
There's hope. There's not a lot of hope, but there's hope. Paul is definitely the significant underdog in this match. But there is potentially a very narrow lane where he can hit and actually win in a stopped match. But we saw in that match versus Irakli, there is definitely a lane there if he's strong enough to pin Sasho with one surge or two surges. The question is when it stops.
Yeah, this is a great match. I see this as we described it before. I see it as Paul's. It's a huge opportunity for Paul. I think he's probably shaken the nerves off now of entering the elite level. He's won himself an East vs West title by beating Rustam, who got injured as we saw. I think he would have been very nervous for that. I think he'll be far less nervous for this. He now feels like, okay, I'm here. This one, I'm going to get to prove that I'm the world champ. And I think that the pressure's on Sasho to win this match. I think Paul and his weight cut will be a big factor. I do think Sasho is the favourite, but I won't at all be surprised if Paul Linn pulls off an amazing victory by actually having better endurance in him because he can obtain a great high hook position.
Yep, I agree with you completely on that one. I agree with you completely. And I think that's probably what Paul Linn should be looking for. And just looking at that round one versus Rustam, you see setup, high, loaded pronation, surge with side pressure. Let them be the one to contain your pronation rather than giving it, and land in that beautiful center table, maybe even A-side high hook. That's a cracker.
It is.
Match.
It is.
That's awesome.
I'm getting the shivers on my spine
I
because I'm thinking about Paul Linn winning.
And then you got the Sasho just surging, hitting into that high hook defense from Paul. It's just which lasts longer, Paul's pronation or Sasho surging.
It's got everything, this match. It is the battle of the people's champs, the people's champ of Bulgaria versus the people's champ of the USA. Paul Linn, Sasho Andreev. It's going down at East vs West 7. Guys, do not miss it. Grab your pay-per-view, and we will be watching. And let us know in the comment section who you think is going to win.